Hello, I'm Sarah Ansari. I'm Professor of South Asian History here at Royal Holloway. Put very simply, India gained independence from the British in 1947 for two main reasons. Firstly, it was thanks to the long and sustained pressure that the Indian nationalist movement had put on the British since the early years of the 20th century. Without that, it's very possible that India would not have achieved its independence for many years longer. But the second reason why India attained its independence in 1947 was due to the Second World War, the impact of the Second World War. Because on the one hand, that meant that the British themselves, their position changed. It weakened Britain tremendously. Britain didn't have the resources or increasingly the inclination to remain in India. On the other hand, however, war is a catalyst for change, particularly political change, and we see that in India too. We see the nationalist struggle intensifying thanks to the impact of the war, and we see the war's impact shortening, speeding up the time within which independence actually came to be achieved. From pretty early on in the 20th century, Indian nationalists were demanding dominion status at least. This was something that they wanted, this is something that they felt India deserved, to be put on the same level as other so-called white dominions. However, over time, the demand for dominion status shifted to one of complete independence. And that was a harder prospect, really, for the British authorities to accept. And so, by the time that the war broke out, one of the conditions, in effect, for Indians being prepared to support the war effort was acknowledgement on the part of Britain that independence would follow the end of the war. However, in 1945, it was still thought that full independence wouldn't possibly come until the early 1970s. What we see is that within 2 years, it did take place. So we get a sense of the impact of the war on the timetable towards independence by just comparing those two dates. What was critical in speeding up this move to independence was firstly a reality check on the part of the British authorities, the British government back in London. They recognised just how impossible it would be to drag out the journey to independence for as long as perhaps had been thought would be possible. But secondly, there was the growing pressure in India itself for real change, made all the more urgent by the fact that alongside the nationalist pressure, there was growing communal violence as well. That is, violence between different religious communities who were feeling the pressure of not knowing what lay ahead. And so that combination of nationalist demand on the one hand and communal tensions on the other, together with Britain's own acknowledgement that it wouldn't be able to sustain colonial rule for much longer. Just think of the impact that the Second World War had had on Britain financially, apart from anything else. Think of the new Labour government's desire to institute a welfare state. Think of the other responsibilities that Britain had in other parts of the world, Palestine particularly. And that combination of factors meant that the timetable towards independence was speeded up considerably.